3 weeks after the battle, the Galactic Union held a formal ceremony aboard Admiral Thorvik's flagship. Representatives from all 47 member species gathered in the massive assembly hall. Cameras recorded everything for broadcast across the galaxy. This was history being made, and everyone wanted to witness it. Daewon stood uncomfortably in a new dress uniform. He had never worn anything so formal before. The collar felt too tight. The shoes were too shiny. He wanted to be back in his maintenance coveralls, fixing something useful. Beside him stood Ambassador Jiwoo, Captain Hyunwoo, Lieutenant Bo-Ra, and Commander Tae Yang, the 5 humans who had changed everything. Behind them, representatives of the 37 human ships that had fought in the battle. Many wore bandages. Some were in mobility chairs from injuries, but they all stood proud. Admiral Thorvik approached the podium at the front of the hall. His large frame commanded attention. The room fell silent. 3 weeks ago, the Galactic Union faced extinction, Thorvik began. The Vrexian Dominion had conquered 12 worlds in 4 days. Our fleets were helpless against their silence field. Our best scientists could not find a defense. Our most experienced commanders could not win. We prepared to abandon this region of space and retreat. He paused, looking directly at the humans. Then a maintenance worker noticed a pattern. And everything changed. Thorvik continued, describing the battle in detail. He did not hide the Union's failures. He openly admitted that the alien commanders had dismissed Daewon's findings. He spoke honestly about how humanity's old technology had saved them all. We were arrogant, Thorvik stated. We saw humanity's simple systems as primitive. We forgot that simplicity can be strength. We forgot that new eyes sometimes see what old eyes miss. We forgot that wisdom is not the same as experience. He gestured to the humans. These people did not forget. When we saw problems, they saw solutions. When we saw defeat, they saw opportunity. And when we ordered evacuation, they advanced. General Velzara stood and approached the podium next. The Aurelian Collective wishes to formally thank the human forces. Your courage and sacrifice saved not just the Union, but my entire species. We will not forget this. One by one, ambassadors from different species stood and offered their gratitude. The Thalassian representative, the Krenthi Military Council. Even species that had barely acknowledged humanity before now spoke with respect. Finally, it was time for the awards. Admiral Thorvik called each human forward individually. Captain Hyunwoo received the Star of Valor, the Union's highest military honor. Lieutenant Bo-Ra received the Tactical Excellence Medal. Commander Tae Yang received recognition for his reconnaissance work. Each of the 37 ship captains received commendations. Then Thorvik called Daewon forward. The maintenance worker walked slowly to the front of the hall. Every eye in the room followed him. Cameras focused on his face. He felt extremely uncomfortable with all the attention. Daewon, Thorvik said formally, you are not a soldier. You are not a commander. You are not a diplomat. You are a technician who maintains environmental systems. But you saw what needed to be seen. You did what needed to be done. And you saved 6 million lives in the process. Thorvik held up a medal. It was the beacon of civilization, an award so rare that only 7 beings in galactic history had ever received it. This honor is given to those who, through their actions, preserve civilization itself. You are the 8th recipient, and the first human. The room erupted in applause. Daewon stood frozen, not sure what to do. Thorvik placed the medal around his neck, then did something unexpected. The massive alien commander knelt down on one knee, bringing himself to Daewon's eye level. Thank you, Thorvik said simply. You saved my people. You saved us all. Daewon helped the admiral back to his feet. I just did my job, sir. No, Thorvik replied. You did far more than your job. You gave us hope when we had none. That is worth more than any fleet. The ceremony continued for another hour. Speeches were made. Treaties were signed. The Galactic Union formally restructured its military doctrine to include what they now called the Human Protocol. Every fleet would maintain simple backup systems. Every strategy would consider low-technology solutions. And every species would remember what happens when you underestimate someone. After the ceremony, Daewon found himself surrounded by admirals and ambassadors wanting to speak with him. They offered him positions: military advisor, strategic consultant, professor at the Union's most prestigious academy. Some species offered him citizenship and massive wealth if he would work for them. He politely declined everything. Ambassador Ji-woo found him later that evening in a quiet observation deck, staring out at the stars. She sat beside him without speaking. They watched ships move through space for several minutes. "You turned down every offer," she finally said. "Yes. They're going to keep asking. You are famous now, the most well-known human in the galaxy. I did not want to be famous. I wanted to fix the problem. You did fix it completely. The Vrexian Dominion is gone. Their subject species are free. The Union is stronger than ever. You accomplished something incredible." Daewon sighed. "So now what? I sit in meetings and talk about strategy? I give speeches about patterns and timing? That is not who I am, Ambassador." "I know," Ji-woo said gently. "So what do you want?" "I want to go back to work. Real work. Maintaining systems. Fixing things. Being useful in a simple way." "You can have any position in the galaxy and you want to return to maintenance work?" "Yes," Ji-woo smiled. "That is very human of you, and probably the sanest thing I have heard anyone say in weeks." She pulled out a data pad. "There is a colony station that just opened. New Jeju. About 15,000 people. They need someone to manage their environmental systems. The pay is terrible. The location is remote. Nobody famous ever goes there." "Perfect," Daewon said immediately. "You are serious?" "Completely. When can I start?" Ambassador Ji-woo laughed. "Give me a week to handle the paperwork. The Union is going to hate losing you, but I will make it happen." 1 month later, Daewon arrived at New Jeju Station. It was small compared to Apex 7. Simple construction. Basic systems. Exactly what he wanted. He reported to the station administrator, received his work assignment, and settled into a small but comfortable apartment. The next morning, he started work in the maintenance bay. The systems were new but straightforward. Environmental controls, life support, water recycling, familiar territory. He spent his first day running diagnostics and making minor adjustments. In the afternoon, Captain Hyun-woo sent him a message. The captain had been promoted to commander of the Adaptive Response Fleet, the new military unit based on human tactical principles. His message was brief. "Hope you are happy in your new job. The galaxy is safer because of you. Come visit the fleet anytime you want." Daewon sent a simple reply. "Thank you. I am good here. Stay safe." Months passed. Life on New Jeju was quiet and routine. Daewon fixed things when they broke. He optimized systems when they needed improvement. He trained a few younger technicians in proper maintenance procedures. It was simple work but important. 15,000 people depended on him to keep their air clean and their water pure. The galaxy moved on. The Union continued restructuring its military. The former Vrexian territory became free space where dozens of liberated species formed their own governments. Trade routes reopened. Peace held. Historians wrote books about the Battle of Apex 7. Daewon's name appeared in all of them, though he never read any of those books. 1 year after the battle, a small girl named Hae-rin started following Daewon around during his maintenance rounds. She was maybe 8 years old, curious about everything. Her parents had moved to New Jeju to start fresh after losing their home in the war. "Why do you do this job?" Hae-rin asked one day, watching him calibrate an oxygen sensor. "Because it needs to be done," Daewon replied. "But you are famous. My teacher told us about you. She said you saved millions of people. You could do anything you want. Why do you fix air systems?" Daewon paused his work and looked at the girl. "Can I tell you a secret?" She nodded eagerly. "The most important jobs are usually the quiet ones. Everyone wants to be the hero with the sword fighting the monster. But someone needs to make sure there is food to eat and air to breathe. Someone needs to keep the systems running. That is how civilization works. Not through big dramatic actions, but through millions of small actions done correctly every day. So fixing air systems is important? Very important. Right now you are breathing clean air because someone designed this system correctly, and because I maintain it properly. If I do my job wrong, everyone on this station could get sick or die. That is a big responsibility." Hae-rin thought about this seriously. "Can you teach me how to do it?" "Maybe when you are older. For now you can watch and learn." She became a regular visitor to the maintenance bay. Daewon found himself explaining systems and showing her how things worked. She was a good student. She asked smart questions and remembered the answers. One day, Ambassador Ji-woo visited New Jeju. She found Daewon in his usual place, working on a coolant pump. Hae-rin sat nearby, reading a technical manual that was probably too advanced for her age. You have a helper, Jiwoo observed. She is curious. Curiosity is good. Darkness and silence filled Apex 7. 6 million beings breathed air that would not be replaced. The station's emergency reserves gave them 20 minutes. Maybe 25 if everyone stayed calm and still. Nobody stayed calm. In the corridors, aliens ran toward docking bays. Families gathered together. Some prayed to their various gods. Others simply held each other and waited. The temperature was already dropping as heating systems failed. Each breath came a little harder than the last. In the maintenance bay, Daewon sat on the floor with his back against the wall. His emergency light gave him just enough glow to see by. Ambassador Jiwoo sat beside him. She had found him here after the pulse, sitting in the darkness of the room where he had worked for 6 years. 16 minutes until the air is gone, she said quietly, checking her mechanical watch. The fleet will need at least 20 to dock and evacuate everyone, Daewon replied. They sat in silence for a moment, not an uncomfortable silence. Just two people who had done everything they could, waiting to see if it was enough. Do you regret it? Jiwoo asked. Pulling the lever? Daewon thought about the question. No. If I had not done it, we would all be dead anyway. At least this way some might survive. That is very logical. I am a maintenance worker. We think about systems and solutions. Emotions do not fix broken equipment. Jiwoo smiled in the dim light. You are more than a maintenance worker, Daewon. You changed the course of galactic history. That is not something many people can say. I just noticed a pattern that others missed, because you were paying attention when no one else was. That matters. Outside in space, Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Steadfast and watched the tactical display. The Vrexian fleet was scattered. Some ships were surrendering. Others were running. The Union had won. But victory meant nothing if everyone on Apex 7 suffocated. How long until we can dock? He demanded. Lieutenant Bora checked her instruments. We are damaged from the battle. Docking clamps are not responding correctly. 18 minutes minimum. We do not have 18 minutes. Find another way. Bora's hands flew across her controls. We could do an emergency hull breach. Use plasma torches to cut directly into the station's exterior. Create a manual airlock. How long? 12 minutes. Maybe 13. Do it. And tell every other ship to do the same. Cut into that station anywhere they can. We are not losing those people. Not after everything. The human fleet moved into position around Apex 7. Ships pressed against the dark station's hull. Crews grabbed cutting equipment and went outside. Plasma torches lit up like blue stars against the metal. Admiral Thorvik's destroyer approached from another angle. His Krenthi crew was experienced with emergency operations. They began cutting into the station's docking ring, working to open emergency passages. General Velgzara's carrier deployed dozens of small shuttles. They could not dock, but they could position themselves near breach points to receive refugees once the holes were cut. All ships, this is Admiral Thorvik, the Krenthi commander broadcast. We have 14 minutes. Work fast, help each other. Leave no one behind. On the Steadfast, Lieutenant Bora watched the clock. 13 minutes until air exhaustion. We are cutting as fast as we can. Inside Apex 7, Ambassador Jiwoo heard the sound of metal being cut somewhere above them. She looked up at the ceiling of the maintenance bay. They are trying to get in. They will not make it in time, Daewon said softly. Maybe not. But they are trying. That counts for something. The temperature continued to drop. Their breath came out in visible clouds now. Daewon felt his chest tighten. Not from panic, just from lack of oxygen. His body was starting to shut down. I need to tell you something, Jiwoo said. In case we do not make it. What? The Union is going to change after this. They have seen what humans can do. What you did. They will never look at us the same way again. Whether we survive this or not, you gave humanity a place in this galaxy. A real place. Not as primitives or newcomers, but as equals. Daewon closed his eyes. I just wanted to fix the problem. I did not think about politics or status, I know. That is why it worked. You did not do this for recognition. You did it because it needed to be done. She paused. That is the most human thing possible. We see something broken and we fix it. We see someone in danger and we help. Not for reward, just because it is right. The sound of cutting metal grew louder. Closer. 10 minutes. Jiwoo checked her watch. They might actually do it. In Corridor 7, a family of Thalassian refugees huddled together. The parents held their two children close, trying to keep them warm and calm. The youngest child was crying softly. The mother sang a traditional song, her voice getting weaker with each verse. Then light appeared above them. Bright, harsh light. The ceiling was being cut open. A human face appeared in the gap wearing a pressure suit. "Hold on!" the crew member shouted down. "We are coming for you." In Corridor 12, an elderly Aurelian couple sat against the wall holding hands. They had been together for 90 years. If they died here, at least they would die together. But then Krenthi soldiers broke through a wall panel, creating an opening to a docked ship. "Everyone this way, quickly, we do not have much time." All across Apex 7, similar scenes played out. Human, Krenthi, Aurelian, and Thalassian crews worked together. They pulled refugees through makeshift airlocks. They carried those who could not walk. They shared their ship's oxygen with beings who had minutes left. In the command center, Admiral Thorvik helped evacuate his staff. He made sure everyone else left first, then turned to go himself. He paused at the door, looking back at the dark room where he had commanded so many operations. A good room, an important room, but just a room. The people mattered more. He climbed through the emergency breach into his destroyer. In the maintenance bay, the sounds of cutting were right above them now. Day One's vision was getting dark around the edges. His lungs burned. Each breath barely gave him enough oxygen to stay conscious. "Stay with me," Jiwoo ordered. She sounded far away. "That is an order, technician. You do not get to die after saving everyone else." The ceiling cracked open. Captain Hyunwoo's face appeared, backlit by the lights of the Steadfast. "Found them," he called to his crew. Then to Daewon and Jiwoo, "Can you move?" Jiwoo tried to stand but fell. Daewon could not move at all. His body was shutting down from oxygen deprivation. Hyunwoo dropped through the hole himself, landing beside them. He grabbed Daewon and lifted him in a fireman's carry. "Bora, get down here and help the ambassador." Lieutenant Bora appeared through the hole and helped Jiwoo to her feet. Together they climbed back up through the breach into the Steadfast. Medical teams were waiting. Oxygen masks, emergency treatments. Daewon felt the pure oxygen flow into his lungs and gasped. "Breathe," someone told him. "Slow and steady." "You are safe now." Minutes passed. The emergency evacuation continued. Ship after ship reported their sections clear. More than 5 million refugees were pulled off Apex 7 in just under 20 minutes. Not everyone made it. 300,000 beings died before rescue could reach them. But 5 million survived who would have all died without the emergency response. Finally, Admiral Thorvik's voice came over the general broadcast. "All sections clear. Apex 7 is evacuated." In the Steadfast medical bay, Daewon lay on a bed with an oxygen mask on his face. His head hurt. His chest hurt. But he was alive. Ambassador Jiwoo sat on the bed next to his, also recovering. Captain Hyunwoo entered the medical bay and stood between them. "The station is empty. Everyone who could be saved was saved. The Union fleet is securing the area. The Vrexians are in full retreat." "Good," Jiwoo managed to say through her oxygen mask. Hyunwoo looked at Daewon. "You did well, technician. Better than well. You saw what needed to be done and you did it." Daewon pulled the mask away from his face. His voice was rough. "Did we win?" "Yes, the Vrexian fleet is scattered. Their flagship is destroyed. Their silence field technology is gone. Without that weapon, they cannot conquer anyone. The reports are already coming in from their territory. Their subject species are rebelling. The Dominion is collapsing, so it is over. The battle is over. What comes next will take longer." Hyunwoo sat down in a chair beside the beds. "The Union wants to talk to you, Daewon. All the admirals. All the ambassadors. They want to understand how a maintenance worker saw what their best scientists missed. I just looked at the data. You looked at the data that everyone else ignored. That is the difference." Hyunwoo smiled. "They are calling it the human protocol now. The strategy of using simple, reliable technology as backup. The idea of looking for simple solutions to complex problems. Every species in the Union is going to retrofit their fleets based on what we did here." Daewon closed his eyes. He felt exhausted, emotionally and physically drained. "I just wanted to help. You did help. You helped more than you know." In the following hours, the full scale of the victory became clear. The Vrexian Dominion, which had threatened the galaxy for thousands of years, was falling apart. 37 human ships and 1 maintenance technician had started a cascade that would free billions of beings. But in the medical bay of the Steadfast, Day One just slept. His body needed rest. His mind needed silence. The galaxy could wait. For now he was just a tired man who had done his job and survived. The silence field hit like a wave of absolute nothing. Every advanced system in the Union fleet died instantly. Communication screens went black. Weapon systems froze. Shield generators collapsed. Navigation computers stopped responding. 200 alien warships became dark metal coffins floating in space. On Apex 7, the main command center lost power. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting red shadows across Admiral Thorvik's shocked face. He stared at the dead tactical display where moments before he had watched his entire fleet. "What happened?" someone shouted in the darkness. "The silence field," General Velgzara answered, her voice tight with fear. "It is bigger than we thought." It reached the station. Ambassador Jiwoo stood calmly in the chaos. She checked her personal timepiece, an old mechanical watch that still worked perfectly. 37 seconds until the first gap. She waited. In space, Captain Hyunwoo felt the Steadfast shudder as modern systems failed around him. But the old mechanical backup systems hummed to life exactly as planned. Manual controls. Analog computers. Technology from Earth's first space age. Primitive by galactic standards. Perfect for this moment. All systems responding, Lieutenant Bora reported, reading from manual instruments that glowed with simple LED lights. "We have control." Around them, the other 36 human ships continued moving. While every alien vessel drifted helpless, humanity's small fleet maneuvered through space using equipment that did not need advanced electronics. The Vrexian commander watched from her flagship with confusion. How are these tiny ships still operational? The silence field had never failed before. Every species they had conquered had relied on advanced technology. Every fleet had become defenseless. But these humans moved. Slow, clumsy, but they moved. "Target those vessels," the Vrexian commander ordered. "Destroy them." Her fleet began to advance, 300 warships closing in on 37 much smaller targets. The outcome seemed certain. Then Daewon's voice crackled over the human fleet's analog radio system. "Gap coming in 5 seconds. Mark your targets now." On the Steadfast, Bora had already locked onto the nearest Vrexian vessel using manual targeting systems. The calculations were harder without computers, but she had trained for this. Her fingers moved across mechanical switches. Target locked. "Weapons ready." 3 seconds. Daewon counted down from Apex 7. 2, 1, fire now. 37 human ships fired together. Not energy weapons, not guided missiles. Old-fashioned kinetic projectiles and ballistic rockets. Dumb weapons that flew straight and fast toward their targets. The silence field pulsed, creating a 3-second gap in its coverage. In that brief moment, the human weapons struck home. Explosions bloomed across 3 Vrexian warships. Shields that should have protected them were still recharging from the pulse. Hulls cracked open. Atmosphere vented into space. Targets hit, Bora confirmed. Reloading. The silence field reactivated. The human fleet adjusted course, moving to new positions. They were following a pattern Daewon had calculated, weaving between the enemy ships during each gap. Back on Apex 7, power suddenly returned to the command center. Admiral Thorvik's tactical display came back online. He stared at it in disbelief. The human ships were attacking. More than that, they were hitting their targets. As he watched, another Vrexian vessel took damage during the next weapons gap. "How are they doing this?" Thorvik demanded. "Their technology is too simple to be affected by the silence field," Jiwoo explained. "And they are timing their attacks to the field's pulse pattern." Exactly as Daewon predicted. Thorvik turned to stare at her. "The maintenance worker was right?" "The maintenance worker is currently guiding their entire fleet from his monitoring station." "Yes, Admiral, he was right." In his maintenance bay, Daewon watched multiple screens showing sensor data. His voice was calm as he continued feeding information to the human ships. "Next gap in 10 seconds. Targets designated. 3 Vrexian vessels on your left flank. They are generators for the silence field." "Confirmed," Captain Hyunwoo responded. "All ships focus fire on the generators. If we take them down, some Union ships might come back online." The human fleet moved into position. They were taking damage now. The Vrexian ships had figured out the pattern and were firing back. 2 human frigates were badly damaged. 1 destroyer was venting atmosphere, but they held formation. 5 seconds, Daewon counted. 4, 3, 2, 1, Fire. This time, the concentrated fire from 20 ships all hit the same 3 targets. The Vrexian generator ships were not expecting such focused assault. Their shields failed. Their hulls broke apart, and critically, their silence field generators exploded. The effect was immediate. A section of the Union fleet suddenly came back online. Power returned. Weapons armed. Communications opened. Admiral Thorvik felt his flagship respond to commands again. All around him, other Krenthi vessels were waking up from their forced sleep. On the tactical display, he could see maybe 30 Union ships coming back online. All vessels, this is Admiral Thorvik. He broadcast immediately. The human fleet has disabled some of the silence field generators. We have a chance to fight. Target the generators. Follow their lead. General Velgzara's carrier group also came back online. Her Aurelian ships immediately joined the attack. More generators fell. More Union vessels woke up. The balance of the battle began to shift. On the Steadfast, Lieutenant Bora monitored the expanding fight. We did it. The Union fleet is engaging. Do not celebrate yet, Hyunwoo warned. The Vrexians still have almost 300 ships, and we have lost 6 vessels already. It was true. The human fleet was paying a heavy price. Small ships with weak shields could not survive many hits, but they had accomplished their mission. They had proven the strategy worked. They had given the Union a chance. Commander Taeyang's reconnaissance ship circled wide around the main battle, marking targets for the larger Union vessels. His voice came over the radio. Multiple Vrexian ships changing formation. They are pulling back toward their flagship. Why would they retreat? Bora wondered. They still outnumber us, Daewon's voice answered from Apex 7. They are not retreating. They are protecting something. Look at the sensor readings around their flagship. Captain Hyunwoo studied his instruments. There was a massive energy buildup near the Vrexian command ship. Something far larger than the normal silence field. What is that? I think it is a backup weapon, Daewon said, his voice tight with worry. Something they use when the field is not enough. The energy signature is growing fast. On Apex 7, Admiral Thorvik saw the same readings. His face went pale. That is a cascade field. I have read reports about this weapon but never seen it. If they activate it, the silence field becomes permanent. Nothing electronic will ever work again in this region. The station will lose life support. Everyone here will die. Ambassador Ji-woo felt ice in her stomach. How long until they can fire it? 60 seconds, maybe less. She grabbed the communication panel. Daewon, can you hear me? Yes, Ambassador. The weapon they are charging. Can it be stopped? There was a pause. Daewon was checking his sensors, running calculations in his head. Maybe, if we can disrupt the power source. It needs perfect temperature stability. Even a small fluctuation would cause it to collapse. How do we cause a fluctuation from here? Another pause. Longer this time. When Daewon spoke again, his voice was very quiet. I can trigger an electromagnetic pulse through the station's maintenance grid. It would create a thermal signature visible across the battlefield. The fleet could use it to target the right spot on the Vrexian flagship. Do it, Ji-woo said immediately. Ambassador, there is a problem. The pulse will destroy the station's life support permanently. Emergency systems will give us maybe 20 minutes of air. If the battle is not won by then, everyone on the station dies. Ji-woo looked around the command center. Thousands of beings worked here. Millions more were sheltering in the lower levels. Families, children, all of them would suffocate if this failed. But if they did nothing, they all died anyway when the cascade field activated. How confident are you that this will work? She asked. 70%, maybe 80. And if we do nothing? 0% chance of survival. Admiral Thorvik was listening to the conversation. He looked at Ji-woo with new respect. It is your decision, Ambassador. Your technician found this weakness. I will support whatever you choose. Ji-woo took a breath. She thought about Daewon, sitting alone in his maintenance bay, ready to sacrifice millions of lives on a plan that might not work. She thought about Captain Hyunwoo and his crew, who had already risked everything. She thought about what humans did best. They lit candles in the darkness. Daewon, she said clearly. Do it, trigger the pulse. Yes, Ambassador. 30 seconds. Alarms began blaring throughout Apex 7. Automated warnings announced the coming life support failure. Panic spread through the corridors as millions of beings realized they were about to lose their air. In his maintenance bay, Daewon's hand rested on the manual override lever. It was an old piece of equipment. installed decades ago as a safety measure. He had tested it during routine maintenance but never imagined actually using it. He thought about his parents back on Earth, about the quiet life he could have lived, about all the choices that had led him to this moment. Then he pulled the lever. Ambassador Jiwoo stood in front of the Military Command Council with Daewon's data displayed on the wall screen behind her. Admiral Thorvik sat at the head of the table, his large frame making the chair look small. General Velzara perched on her specialized seat to his right. 5 other senior officers from different species filled the rest of the room. "With respect, Ambassador," Thorvik said after she finished her presentation, "this analysis seems too simple. The Vrexian technology is beyond anything we have encountered. To suggest that a maintenance worker found a weakness that our top scientists missed is difficult to believe." Jiwoo kept her voice calm and professional. "The pattern is in your own sensor data, Admiral. Anyone can verify it. My colleague simply took the time to look. Human technology is very basic compared to ours," Velzara added, though her tone was not unkind. "Perhaps your people see patterns that are actually just sensor noise. We have analyzed this data with the most advanced computers in the Union. They found nothing useful." "Maybe that is the problem," Jiwoo replied. "Maybe your advanced computers are looking for complex solutions when the answer is simple." Thorvik shook his massive head. "I mean no disrespect to your species, Ambassador. Humans have contributed to the Union in many ways, but military strategy requires experience. Your people have been part of our alliance for less than a century. The Vrexian Dominion has been a threat for thousands of years. I must trust the judgment of our veteran commanders." The meeting ended shortly after. Jiwoo collected her datapad and left the command center. Daewon was waiting in the corridor outside, sitting on a bench. He stood when he saw her expression. "They said no," he guessed. "They said it is too simple to be true," Jiwoo corrected. "Which means the same thing." Daewon nodded slowly. He had expected this, but disappointment still settled in his chest. "What do we do now?" Jiwoo looked at him for a long moment. "We go to people who will listen." That afternoon, Jiwoo sent an encrypted message to every human ship captain in the region. By evening, she had responses from 12 vessels. Most were small cargo ships and research vessels, but 3 were military ships, including the destroyer called Steadfast, commanded by Captain Hyun-woo. They met in a private conference room, speaking through secure video channels. Captain Hyun-woo appeared on the main screen. He was younger than Daewon expected, maybe 40 years old, with sharp eyes that studied the data carefully as Daewon explained his findings. "The pattern is clear," Hyun-woo agreed. 37-second intervals. "Very regular. If this is accurate, it means the silence field is not instant or permanent. It pulses." "That is my conclusion," Daewon confirmed. "I think there are small gaps when the field resets. Maybe only a few seconds. But enough." "Enough for what?" asked Lieutenant Bora, the tactical officer on Steadfast. She looked even younger than her captain, but her reputation was solid. Jiwoo had heard she graduated top of her class from Earth's military academy. "Enough to attack," Daewon said. "If we time our strikes to match the gaps between pulses, we could hit them before the field reactivates." Commander Taeyang, who led a small reconnaissance ship, spoke up. "That would require incredibly precise coordination, and it assumes our weapons still work during those gaps." "Modern weapons would not work," Hyun-woo said thoughtfully. "Energy weapons, guided missiles, anything that depends on advanced electronics would still be disabled. But older technology might function." Bora leaned forward on her screen. "You mean kinetic weapons? Ballistic missiles, railguns, the equipment we kept from the old wars on Earth." "Equipment the Union considers obsolete," Hyun-woo added. "Equipment that most alien species stopped using thousands of years ago." A smile slowly grew on Jiwoo's face. "Equipment that does not need computers or advanced electronics to work. Equipment that is immune to the silence field." The group fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity's technological backwardness, the thing that made them seem primitive to the rest of the galaxy, might be their greatest advantage. "How many human ships are in this sector?" Hyun-woo asked. Jiwoo checked her records. 37 combat vessels. Most are small. Destroyers and frigates. Nothing larger than a light cruiser. "And the Vrexian fleet heading toward us?" 300 warships, Commander Taeyang reported grimly. "They will reach Apex 7 in 70 hours. The numbers were brutal. 37 human ships against 300 Vrexian vessels. Even with a plan, the odds were terrible. We cannot win this alone, Bora stated. Even if our old weapons work, we are too few. We do not need to win alone, Hyunwoo replied. We just need to prove the strategy works. If we can disable even a few silence field generators, the other Union ships will come back online. Then they can fight. So we become the spearhead, Taeyang said. We take the first hit. We break their defense. Then we hope the rest of the fleet wakes up in time to help us. We become bait, Bora corrected. Hyunwoo looked at each face on his screen. I will not order anyone to do this. It is a volunteer mission, high risk, probably fatal for many of us. Anyone who wants to leave should do so now. No judgment. No shame, nobody moved. Nobody spoke about leaving. After a moment, Commander Taeyang smiled. I did not join the military to run from fights. Neither did I, Bora agreed. One by one, the other captains confirmed their commitment. 37 ships, 37 human crews, all choosing to stand against an enemy that had crushed dozens of more powerful fleets. Then we have work to do, Hyunwoo declared. We have 70 hours to prepare. Day 1. We will need your data and your help coordinating timing. Can you do that? Yes, Day 1 replied without hesitation. Ambassador Jiwoo, we will need you to handle the politics. When the battle starts, the Union commanders will see us moving while everyone else is frozen. They will have questions. I will handle them, Jiwoo promised. The meeting ended and the screens went dark. Jiwoo and Daewon sat alone in the conference room. Through the window they could see Apex 7's main docking bay. Ships were arriving constantly, bringing refugees from fallen worlds, families with children, elderly beings who had lost their homes, millions of lives depending on the Union's protection. Do you think this will work? Daewon asked quietly. I think it is the only chance we have, Jiwoo answered. The Union admirals are preparing to evacuate. They have accepted defeat. If we do nothing, the Vrexians will take this station, and then they will take the next one and the next one until there is nothing left to defend. And if we fail, then we fail trying instead of running. Sometimes that is the best anyone can do. Over the next 3 days, the human fleet prepared for battle. Ships moved into position. Weapons that had not been fired in decades were tested and armed. Pilots ran simulations based on Daewon's timing calculations. Every human on every ship knew what was coming. Meanwhile, the Union Military Command issued evacuation orders. Admiral Thorvik began moving non-essential personnel off Apex 7. Transport ships arrived to carry diplomats and civilians to safer locations deeper in Union space. The massive station slowly emptied, but the human ships did not evacuate. They formed a defensive line between Apex 7 and the approaching Vrexian fleet. 37 small vessels against the darkness of space. On the Steadfast, Captain Hyunwoo stood on his bridge and watched the enemy approach on his sensors. 300 contacts. Getting closer. His crew was silent, focused, ready. Lieutenant Bora called out, "Enemy fleet entering weapons range in 10 minutes. All ships, maintain position," Hyunwoo ordered over the fleet channel. "Wait for my signal. Trust the timing. Trust each other." On Apex 7, Daewon sat in the maintenance control room with direct access to the sensor network. He would be the eyes for the fleet during the battle. His hands were steady on the controls despite his racing heart. Ambassador Jiwoo stood in the main command center beside Admiral Thorvik. The alien commander watched the tactical display with resignation. "Your ships are not evacuating," Thorvik observed. "No," Jiwoo replied simply. "They will die out there. All of them. Perhaps. Or perhaps they will surprise you." Thorvik looked at her with something like pity. "Humans are brave. I have always said this. But bravery without wisdom is just another form of suicide." Jiwoo smiled slightly. "Admiral, my people have a saying. It is better to light a candle than curse the darkness. Your fleets are cursing the darkness. My people are about to light a candle." The Vrexian fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 300 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They were massive dark vessels that looked more like living creatures than machines. They moved toward Apex 7 with terrible purpose. On the Steadfast bridge, Lieutenant Bora counted down. 30 seconds to silence field activation. Captain Hyunwoo took a breath. "All ships, prepare for darkness. Remember your training. See you on the other side." The Vrexians activated their weapon, and the galaxy went silent. The maintenance bay of Apex 7 smelled like heated metal and recycled air. Daewon wiped his hands on his work uniform and stared at the environmental console in front of him. Numbers scrolled across the screen in steady patterns. Temperature levels, oxygen flow, pressure readings. Everything looked normal, which meant he had done his job correctly. Outside the small room, thousands of aliens walked through the massive station. Diplomats from 47 different species talked about trade agreements and peace treaties. Military officers planned defensive strategies. Scientists shared research about new technologies. None of them noticed the human technician who kept their air breathable and their water clean. Daewon preferred it that way. He had worked on Apex 7 for 6 years. In that time, he had learned that staying quiet and doing good work was the best way to survive. The galaxy was a big place, and humanity was still very new to it. Only 80 years ago, humans had joined the Galactic Union. Most alien species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They looked at humans the way adults looked at children who just learned to walk. The console beeped. Daewon checked the alert. A ventilation shaft near the command center needed repair. He picked up his tool bag and headed out. The corridors of Apex 7 were crowded today. More crowded than usual. Daewon noticed the tension in the air immediately. Alien officers moved quickly, their faces serious. Groups gathered in corners speaking in low voices. Something was wrong. Daewon reached the ventilation access point and climbed inside. The shaft was narrow and dark, but he had crawled through it hundreds of times before. His headlamp cut through the darkness as he moved toward the damaged section. The work was simple. Replace a burned-out motor, reconnect some wiring. Basic maintenance that would take maybe 30 minutes. Then he heard voices coming from the command center below. The ventilation shaft ran directly over the main strategy room. Sound traveled up through the metal grates. Daewon paused his work and listened. Admiral Thorvik was speaking. The Krenthi commander had a deep voice that carried easily. 12 worlds have fallen in 4 days. Our fleets cannot stop them. The Vrexians are using some kind of new weapon. Another voice responded. General Velxara from the Aurelian Collective. The silence field. It shuts down everything. Communications, weapons, shields. Our ships become floating targets. They destroy us before we can even fight back. Daewon kept listening as he slowly continued his repair work. He had heard about the Vrexian Dominion. They were an empire of insect-like warriors who believed in conquest. For decades, they had stayed on the other side of the galaxy. Now apparently they were attacking. How does this weapon work? Admiral Thorvik asked. We do not know, Velxara admitted. Our scientists have analyzed the sensor data from destroyed fleets. The field appears suddenly. No warning, no defense. Everything electronic simply stops working. A third voice joined the conversation. Ambassador Ruvik from the Thalassian Accord. Perhaps we should consider negotiation. If we cannot fight them, we must find another way. Negotiate with the Vrexians? Thorvik sounded angry. They do not negotiate. They conquer or they destroy. There is no middle ground with their kind. The discussion continued for another hour. Daewon finished his repair while listening to every word. The situation was worse than he had imagined. The Vrexian fleet was moving through Union space like a storm. Millions of beings had already died. More would die unless someone found a way to stop the silence field. As the meeting ended and the officers left the room, Daewon climbed back out of the ventilation shaft. His mind was working on the problem. He had heard them mention sensor data. Data meant patterns. Patterns could be analyzed. He returned to his maintenance bay and accessed the station's sensor network. Technically, he was only supposed to use these systems for environmental monitoring, but the network was connected to everything, including the military observation equipment. Daewon had discovered this connection years ago while fixing a routing error. He had never used it before. He had never needed to. Now he needed to. The sensor logs loaded onto his screen, massive amounts of information from dozens of battles. Daewon filtered the data, looking for readings from moments when the silence field activated. He worked through the night, ignoring his scheduled sleep period. Coffee kept him awake. Curiosity kept him focused. Around dawn, he found it. A pattern in the background radiation readings. Right before the silence field activated, there was a spike. Very small. Easy to miss. But it was there, and it repeated. Every single time. Daewon leaned back in his chair and rubbed his tired eyes. The pattern was predictable. The spikes came in regular intervals like a heartbeat. 37 seconds between each pulse. That meant the field was not random. It was controlled by something. A generator, probably. And if it had a pattern, it had weaknesses. He thought about going to the command center immediately, telling the admirals what he had found, but he stopped himself. Would they listen to a human maintenance worker? Admiral Thorvik had barely looked at him the few times they had crossed paths in the corridors. To the Admiral, Day-Wan was invisible, just another crew member who fixed things when they broke. No, he needed to approach this differently. He needed someone who would listen. Ambassador Ji-Woo, the human representative to the Galactic Union. She was the only person on the station who might take him seriously. Day-Wan saved his data and locked his console. His shift was over anyway. He made his way through the waking station toward the diplomatic quarters. Most aliens were still sleeping, following their various biological cycles. The corridors were quiet. He reached Ji-Woo's door and pressed the alert button. A moment passed. Then another. Finally, the door opened. Ambassador Ji-Woo stood there in casual clothing, her expression curious and slightly annoyed at being disturbed so early. "Day-Wan," she said, recognizing him from occasional meetings of the human staff. "Is something wrong with my environmental systems?" "No, Ambassador," he replied quietly. "I need to talk to you about the Vrexians. I think I found something important." Her expression changed immediately. The annoyance vanished, replaced by sharp focus. She stepped back and gestured for him to enter. "Show me." Inside her quarters, Day-Wan explained everything he had heard and everything he had discovered. Ji-Woo listened without interrupting, studying the data on the portable pad he had brought. When he finished, she was silent for a long moment. "This pattern," she finally said. "You are certain it is accurate?" "Yes. I checked it against 17 different battle records. It appears every time." "And you think this means we can predict when the field will activate?" "More than that," Day-Wan said. "If we can predict it, we can work around it. The field has to pulse to stay active. During those pulses, there might be gaps, moments when systems could come back online, or when attacks could get through." Ji-Woo nodded slowly. "This could change everything. We need to bring this to the military command. Will they listen?" Day-Wan asked. She met his eyes. Her expression was sad but honest. "Probably not to you directly, but they might listen to me. And I will make sure they understand this came from you." Day-Wan felt a weight lift from his chest. He had done what he could, found the pattern. Now others would have to decide what to do with it. Outside the window, the stars continued their slow dance across space. Somewhere out there, the Vrexian fleet was coming closer, and somewhere in a quiet maintenance bay, a human technician had just found the key to stopping them. He just hoped someone would use it before it was too late.